Welcome, everybody, to the latest edition of the Inside Track podcast. I've got an amazing guest on today. Bob Esquerre, how are you?
You're embarrassing me, Ryan. I am just like you, humble, low-key, and shy. And I also lie, but that's okay. That's okay.
You're definitely not shy, Bob, and that's in the first 2 minutes of meeting you. So that is certainly a lie. But I guess, because obviously you're based over in America, some people, especially in the UK, might not know who you are. Do you want to give our listeners a bit of a run through who Bob is, what you've done in the past, and what you do now?
Okay. If you really want to find out who Bob is and dig deep in social media, there is a picture of me taken by John Hardy in Sherwood Forest wearing a Robin Hood hat with a feather. Wow. As evidence, I have been in the UK. Absolutely. So if you find it, please send a copy to you, Ryan. Send it to me because it does exist. So I do exist. I have been in the UK, and I have been doing work initially with the original Legacy FitPro organization with Andy Jackson back in the day. I've done work with Faster with John Hardy back in the day. I've also done work with, in fact, recently Elevate. I was at the Elevate conference in June in 2024. So there is an experience there. Plus, I've worked for probably 19 months working with fitness professionals who are very entrepreneurial focused and customer centric focused in terms of the business skills that they all need to be able to engage customers, inactive customers, but also how to build their business to make it a viable, successful option for them as a career path. So that does exist, and I do exist.
Well, I'm going to search out that picture and I'm going to post it for you, just so there is proof. Now, obviously, you work in a lot of fields. You don't just work with health clubs. You work with personal trainers and fit pros in general. So it's really good to get you on and see your insight in terms of where the industry's going, what we need to look at now. You're a big believer in trying to make sure we've got career paths for FitPro. So, what would you say is the best way that we can make that work? So someone has from the start to finish, they've got somewhere to go. Because I think there's a bit of a breakdown at the moment in terms of career paths.
I think that from a global perspective and also from a national perspective in terms of the US and in terms of the UK, the certifying organizations, we have SimSpun in the UK, we have NASM here, we have other organizations, but once we get the fundamental science down, we become great scientists. Where the disconnect is that as great scientists, we never learn how to talk to people. We never learn how to engage people. We never learn how to listen to people in terms of their spoken word, but more importantly, we don't listen to the unspoken word, which sometimes is more profound than the spoken word. That disconnect takes us away from building a viable career path. However, that being said, you take the science, you take the emotional intelligence skill sets, which we really don't learn. Once we put it together, there's no stopping us from becoming an entrepreneurial focused professional who is customer centric in our approach to the customers. And that combination is absolutely key.
Well, it's amazing, isn't it? Because I think people fail to realize we actually work in the hospitality industry. I know, because obviously you're saying science, absolutely. Now, the science behind the training is important. Obviously, it is, because we want people to get results and everything else. But fundamentally, as a business, we're hospitality. And that's sometimes where the clubs seem to lack, or the businesses seem to lack.
Exactly right. And again, we find ourselves in a disadvantage as a sector because of COVID. I would call it a entrepreneurial pivot because of COVID, in that once all the Fit Pros were released and let go, we couldn't pay our bills. So those of us who had an entrepreneurial mindset and a customer-centric focus, we survived. So that's group number one. Group two, we didn't know anything as to what to do, and we succeeded by trial and error, but we had to succeed to pay our bills. So we ended up saying, okay, we were successful in group one. In group two, why should I go back to the clubs when I can make more money outside the clubs? So that's where we find ourselves right now. We have a shortage for a reason, because we had to survive outside the clubs.
Absolutely. And it's always amazed me how obviously we had the COVID, everyone went online, started doing those things, so we didn't have that direct connection with the customers. But I talk about it all the time in terms of What are you doing to engage with your customers? What are you doing to make those wow moments? And that's what keeps the members in our clubs. But not just that. I guess when we pull it back to the career paths, there's no training for this.
Yes, and yes. This is the problem. And here's where the major disconnect is at. The clubs don't get that. See, what makes the club come to life is the energy and the passion from its team members.
Absolutely.
That energy and passion is not there. Why would I stay there as a customer? And why would I refer people there as a customer as well? I'll probably end up dropping out if I'm not engaged, if I'm not respected, if I'm not motivated, if I'm not taken on a constantly changing journey of success specific to my needs. That's what we bring to the table.
Oh, absolutely. And if you have a look, and I tell clubs all the time that I work with that you can have the best facility in the world, you can fill it with the most expensive kit, you can have the biggest club. It means nothing if the person they meet at reception or on the gym floor is not engaging, is not interested, who's not. So you sort of going, the club here and the club here, this one may be 50 years old, this one may be brand new. They're no different. You've got a treadmill, you've got weights, so in a great scheme of things, it's the same. What differentiates you is your client journey and the interaction with the customers.
Yes. So recently there was a study that came out that said in the EU, they've expanded past where they were pre-COVID in terms of memberships. And that's great. My question is, which never was addressed, what's their attrition rate?
Yeah.
See, that nobody wants to talk about that, but from my perspective, that's critical.
And we'll come on to lifetime value in a minute, because I know that's something you've got some great ideas on. And I guess the other challenge we have in the UK, and you guys probably don't feel it as much in the US, we were almost embarrassed by great customer service in the UK, and that's why we are as a nation quite prudish, quite reserved, and we don't receive customer service very well. And I think that's why we don't give it. And that's why I love Americans like yourself, because it's so ingrained in your culture that customer service, and you go into a hotel, I worked for Marriott for years, and the variance between a Marriott in the US and a Marriott in the UK, it's chalk and cheese. They're completely different.
Okay. Now I'm glad you said that. So my wife and I, we bought a place in London back in 2008. So we've been going back and forth since 2008. So when we have a service given to us by someone in the UK, in London, wherever, Scotland, doesn't really matter, and it's great service, we break the mold and we give someone a tip. And when they get that tip, it's like, you didn't have to do that. No, what you did for us was above and beyond. So we recognize that and we contribute to their effort, because they didn't have to do that, but they did it. And it's been done consistently. So I'm going to take exception to that, because we've seen some great customer service. I mean, really. And even in the clubs, I've seen some great customer service. I've seen some bad customer service, but I see it. And I think it's because of how they were raised. There are folks who were raised by their grandparents and their parents to be respectful and to be engaging. And if you see something that's really, really powerful, you acknowledge it. And you just want to give that extra 9 yards, as we say in the States. And we've been so happy. We're still in the UK. We still have.
But the amazing thing is, I think in the UK, you remember it when it happens. When I think it's almost expected in the US, because that's what the culture is.
Yeah. Okay. I'll give you that. I'll give you that.
It's and there are some fantastic people out there. Absolutely, of course there are. And I think, like you say, it's their upbringing, and it's also a well-managed, well-structured client journey, and everybody buys into the culture of that business. But I think when it does happen, and this is an opportunity for clubs out there. That's the great thing about it, is because it isn't the norm. If you're able to create that culture within your business, and I think customer service is a culture as much as anything.
It is.
If you've got that, you will stand out a country mile above your competition, because you can create the community, you can create the culture, and everything just works if you get that right.
Exactly. You know what? As you say that, I was given an opportunity to get a tour of Third Space at Wimbledon. The minute I walked in the door, eye contact was on me. They wanted to make sure they saw me. I saw them. We had a conversation. I took the tour. It was like positive, positive, positive. Even though I wasn't a member, the fact that it was part of their culture, That was profound. That was profound. Yeah.
They're fabulous clubs. They are. I mean, obviously they're top end, they're expensive and whatever, but they, I think they earn the right to be, because they are fantastic clubs. I know Glenda, who sometimes does a podcast with me, she's potentially looking at well-being coaches and stuff with them. So that's really exciting. Now, I guess this comes on to the issue as well, or the subject of emotional intelligence and sort of technical intelligence, doesn't it? Because that's where this difference, because a lot of clubs are very technically proficient.
Yes.
And it's that emotional intelligence that we need to significantly work on, I think.
And once we master emotional intelligence, we call that EQ. Once we master that, everything's about the customer. Everything's about value. We discuss value. We deliver value. Price is not part of the conversation at all. The price takes care of itself. The issue is, why should I come to you? Why should I stay with you? Why should I refer to you? And once that relationship's established, it's all about the value. Money is incidental, but that takes a mindset shift to go from money to value, because we're not trained in that.
No, exactly. We're always selling a product, aren't we? Rather than selling the emotional needs of the client, we're selling the product that we've got, and it's the wrong way around, especially in fitness, because you're not selling a car, you're not selling a house, you know what I mean? It's purely an emotional decision. Someone wants to achieve a goal. It's an emotional decision.
You just said that word. It's an emotional decision. So if we're not trained to tap into that, to recognize that, to be able to engage that to the next level, we missed the boat. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
Well, I was trained on all the Casey Conrad stuff. Good old Casey Conrad, and honestly, all the stuff, it's all about emotional engagement. Find the hot spot and go for it like that. And if someone isn't joining, then you haven't really tapped into their emotional needs and as to why they want to.
Exactly. And that's difficult, really, really difficult. But again, though, once we have that, then the question is, okay, how do I deliver those great experiences? Because that's part of the emotional tie-in as well.
Absolutely. Well, in essence, and this is really true, your new member starts from the moment they're a prospect. So that whole journey starts from the moment they come to your club. And then obviously once they've joined, you've got to follow on their experience. It's all right sitting down and going, no, we want to find out your needs and everything else to sell it. That information's then got to push over to the fitness team or the rest of the team to follow that journey through and ensure they're achieving their goals.
Ryan, you and I are in such sync on this one. So here's the challenge. I go even further. One of the weaknesses we have on the FitPro side is that we don't, we don't ask for testimonies or testimonials from our customers, which is something which is normal. I had a FitPro in the States, and for 15 years, he never asked for testimonials in his studio. And it's like, but you're a great trainer. Yeah, but I don't want to ask. I feel kind of funny. So when his studio closed up, he had to play with the big boys now. He had to go to Lifetime. Lifetime's a whole different animal. Well, he didn't have a social media campaign. His campaign was driven by his happy customers. He didn't even ask them. They did it on their own.
Did they? Wow.
But they did it on their own because that's the relationship they had with him. So within 35 days, he was fully booked up in a brand new club. He was never there before. And the other trainers who've been there for 5, 10, 15 years go to him and say, how'd you do that? Unbeknownst to him, it's that relationship, that experience. And even though he didn't ask for it when he should have asked for it, they did it for him in terms of his customers. And that's why he's fully booked. Fully booked.
Social proof is so massive, and I go on about this all the time with clubs. Really push, and it's not necessarily having it on a Google review. You need to get it out in front of people. You need to get it onto your socials. So if someone leaves a review, get it nice and big. Get it on your socials, and that feedback is really important, because if someone's looking for a product and someone else has said it's amazing, it does. Why wouldn't you choose that over someone else who you don't know anything about or they've got no recommendations?
Exactly. And then the other side of this is we've been in a club and I've been approached. So when I give my presentations, I ask a question. If someone who's a member of your club comes to you on the fitness floor and asks you how much you charge for personal training, I ask that question to my audience. and they all give them the price. I said, no, you're already pre-qualified because they've been watching you. They've been watching you train. They see how you interact with your customers, how they interact with you. They've probably even spoken to your customers unbeknownst to you. So they're already pre-qualified. So the conversation isn't about the price. Let's sit down and have a cup of tea or a cup of coffee and talk about what your needs are, what your sweet spots are, and then we'll deal with that. The first thing we want to talk about is money. No, that's the worst. No.
Well, that's just logical then, isn't it? They're just making a price on value that they don't know anything about. It's really interesting. If you, I don't know whether you know Steve Harrison, really nice bloke, used to work for Techni Gym and Esquerre and stuff like that. And he has a quote that I always remember when I worked with him, was that personal training is a spectator sport. And it comes back to that. They've already seen what you do. So if you're a good trainer, absolutely, you're 100% focused on your client when you're training them. But you have to also understand that everybody in the gym is watching you. So yes, how you deliver that session is your billboard.
Exactly right. And here's where my model comes in at. If you're a personal trainer who happens to be a Group X instructor, the visibility dynamics totally change. Totally changed. But Bob, I can't get in front of a class. I said, don't get in front of the class. Get in the class. Understand the dynamics. So I had a trainer, several trainers over the years, but where do I start? You take the most packed class, you go to the back of the room, and I'm going to give you 4 weeks to go from row 7 to row 4. And if you can get to row 4, that means you can probably get to row 2. And if you can get to row 2, that means you could probably teach, because you understand those dynamics and the people in front of you recognize your skill sets and are permitting you to go from 7 to 5 to 4 to 2 or in the front row. I'm the person that came out of the front row. That's how I got into group. I made it from the back. I got to the front. And when I got to the second row, my folks in the front row said, okay, Bob, you've made it. Come on, we'll give you some space. Then I took over the class. Whole different issue.
But it's true though. I mean, I've seen so many personal trainers that do really, really well from a Group X scenario, and I think that's why they do really well from small group personal training. It's a massive feeder into one-to-one PT, and I mean, some of them say go the other way, go from one-to-one to group because you're dealing with more people, but you can really feed both businesses. You get them in on the group, they go to one-to-one, and then you just keep feeding that cycle.
Right. Now, here's where the clubs mess up. The clubs mess up because they don't really price anything above one-on-one correctly. So in my business model, one-on-one's an option, but I have in front of one-on-one is teaching group, because group, if I'm good, will feed me into one-on-one. Then I go to two-on-one as an option, small group as an option, large group as an option, coaching as an option. At each of those points in my career, my income per session goes up. So think of this as a personal trainer. How many sessions a day can we do before we burn out? How many sessions a week? How many sessions a month? So 31 sessions, okay, that's reasonable. It's balanced, but my income is capped. Yeah. What if I did 31 contacts, which included Group X, one-on-one, two-on-one, small group, large group, where my income goes up per contact session? So my 31 sessions of one-on-one, I get X. My 31 sessions of something else gives me X plus Y plus Z. Yeah. Whole different issue. So from a club standpoint, I'm touching more customers. They're getting a better experience. They're going to stay. They're going to refer. Win for the club, win for the FitPro. More importantly, win for the customers. Win, win, win. Absolutely.
So much more choice as well. And the great thing is you've got most people, well, especially beginners, they'll come in, quite often won't do one-to-one because it's quite intense. So they go into the group, they get comfortable. Now you've got someone who knows the exercise, they know their body, they know how they want to feel. Now it's easy into one-to-one or one-to-two. And it just progresses like that, doesn't it? Because you've already got that person feeling comfortable and you've got them in the door.
Yes. And they trust us. They feel safe. They're going to refer to us because they want their friends to share the positive experience they've gone through as well. Yes. We like that.
And all this feeds into a really important point is in terms of the longevity of the members, because that's obviously retention we'll come on to afterwards. But in terms of the length of stay of a member, it's really important because a lot of clubs don't look at this. They get a member in there, then that person will leave, but they don't actually look at the time. It could be 3 months, it could be 18 months. But obviously, and I talk to Paul quite a lot, and obviously you look at some of his, Paul Bedford, you look at some of his stats, and it's not just that you make more money on a straight line, the longer they stay, that line goes up because the longer they're here, the more they spend.
That's exactly right, because they feel good. They feel good because of the culture in the club or studios delivered by us, because we're trained to do just that. Exactly right. So think about taking that great interaction skill set that we have as Fit Pros, help us put us in the front end of the member recruiting process to start their journey. If we put that energy up front, then we have a better qualitative sales process that isn't traditional selling, it's relationship selling. So it changes the expectation. So if we enhance the quality aspect of the sale, the life cycle goes up. You're absolutely right.
And in terms of improving that lifestyle, what would you recommend for clubs who are looking at it and going, actually, we're sat at 6 months as an average length of stay? What sort of things would you say to put in place to try and pull that out to 9 months, to 12 months and beyond?
Okay, one of the things we did back in the day with Equinox, for example, which I came in as fitness director there. The challenge there was to make sure the front end sales folks were not sales folks. Right. They were Fit Pros. Okay, they all had been training. They were trained, and they worked in conjunction with the fitness team members, whether it's the manager or the new trainers coming up who are already trained in emotional intelligence skill sets. So it wasn't a typical sales experience. It was a relationship experience. So the typical sleazy barrier concept of the salesperson didn't exist. That wasn't what we were about. It was about, what do you need? Tap into what they're saying, tap into what they're not saying, and give them what they need and help them understand why they need it. And our job was to make that happen. It's
really interesting point you make, because a lot of clubs now, they look and go, personal trainers don't make good salespeople, so we need to bring salespeople in. And what you're saying is train the PTs or train the fitness professionals to sell, because they'll be better at it.
Right, but the qualifier is don't sell to sell, engage to build that relationship. So once you change that mindset, the experience for the customer comes in totally changes. Now to reinforce that, this is why Fit Pros need to create a social media campaign in their trade area. So if someone comes in, it's happened to me dozens and dozens of times. Somebody says to me, how come you charge so much? I don't go into a back and forth conversation. I either write my name down, I give them my call. I'd say, do me a favor, Google me. That's all I do. Google me. They come back and they say, is that all you charge? I let them make that decision. But we have to be proactive to create that ambiance, that awareness in our trade area as, who is Bob? Why Bob? What am I getting from Bob, for example? Critical.
It's almost taking the big club mentality and making it very personal, isn't it? You're sort of making it personal around the staff, rather than it about the club. We've got whoever on the front door. It's about the team that are within that business.
Exactly right. And what I do with most of my one-on-one clients are also my students. I teach large group, small group TRX. I teach cycling classes. So all my students, most of them either take my classes or take other trainers classes who I recommend for them. So we create that sense of community. So I can get a lot of testimonials. I built it into my social media campaign. So when someone does a Google search on me, they'll see Rhoda, they'll see Steve, they'll see everybody and say, oh, Rhoda's like me, or Steve's like me. Let me contact Rhoda. Let me be friends with her on Facebook, whatever that takes. But we have to start that, and we stimulate that, because at the end of the day, we're a brand within the brand, which is okay.
So, absolutely. And I guess one thing I'd put onto that then is say, how do the clubs then go around finding the right people? Because I know at the minute, finding the right PTs is quite tough, because obviously, as you rightly said, a lot of the PTs left during COVID. They were either let go because there was no money in it, or they were freelance in the clubs and they just literally had no clients, so they've gone to work for Tesco's or whoever it is. Now we're really short of a gene pool, in essence, of good staff. So what should they look for?
Okay, the same reason why a member should come into a club, stay in a club, refer to a club is the exact same reason why a FitPro should come into or not come into a club, should stay in a club or not stay in a club, and refer or not refer to a club. How can that club help me in my career? Yeah. This is where the disconnect is at, because of COVID, all those clubs and organizations that had in-house training programs disappeared. Yeah. Or they went virtual. So there was no growth pattern laid out for these new candidates coming in. Again, they're fresh out of the box. They're scientists. They're not business people. So the hook is going to be, we can help you as an operator with your science, make you a complete professional by giving the business side to you and help you grow your business. Now, clubs will say, what's to say they won't leave us? That's the gamble we take. That's the risk we take. If we create a positive, engaging environment, they're going to stay. If it's toxic, they're not going to stay, and shame on us as operators. So we have to give them a reason to come and to stay. And the hook is, you're new out of the box, you're a great scientist, let's add the next level of value to you so you can build your career. And here's the challenge. If all the FitPro is looking for is a higher hourly rate, that's limited. But if I want a career opportunity, I want to have a higher percentage payout, number one, which makes sense. I want medical, I want dental, I want vision coverage, I want paid time off, I want vacation time, I want a option lifetime in the States. If you hit their financial performance goals, once a quarter, you get up to 24 shares of lifetime stock for free.
Is that right? Wow.
Okay. If I'm hitting my numbers, I want that. I want the medical, I want the vision, I want the dental, I want the meds, the medical coverage, I want the vacation, I want the 401, and I want that stock. That is a career option. I want it all. If the organization can help me get there, why wouldn't I stay there?
Yeah, exactly. And the organization wins because they're hitting targets. So it's not as if it's a free, they're not just giving it away for non-performance. And I think the problem in the UK, or the challenge we have in the UK, is because of COVID and whatever's changed, we are just filling our clubs full of freelance staff. There's very few clubs now, or there's a lot less, that are taking on staff, and they're treating them as separate businesses instead of, because it doesn't matter whether you employ or whether they're freelance. It's just a different way of that person getting paid. But we should treat them like they are a member of staff. They will interact with your clients better. They'll jump on reception and help if you need it. They'll do all those extra bits because they feel part of the team. But so many clubs don't treat them as part of the team. They almost see them as a separate part that pays rent every month.
I know it's the operation and them. And
yes.
That's wrong because the end of the day, we all touch the customer, and the customer experience, the CX, has got to be top shelf, must be top shelf.
It's the same if you look at retention. We'll come on to that now. It's a nice little pivot. But if you look at Group X instructors, the impact a Group X instructor can have on your club is immense, from retention to sales to the whole shebang. And yet a lot of them are treated as literally we pay for that class and they walk in, walk out, not seen as part of the club environment itself.
But that's shame on us because again, we don't respect the power of a well-trained FitPro who can touch that member and keep them once they establish that relationship on that journey to success. That's always evolving as the skill set of the consumer gets better and better. They want to do something different as well, and they're going to. I'm never leaving here. This is my. I hate to say this. This is my third space. to Rob Beal and the gang over at Third Space. Yeah, that's what it's about.
But look how many times an instructor will leave and suddenly a club loses 10, 15 members overnight because they've gone down to the other club. And you just think you need to appreciate the power that person has in your club. Whether you want to or not, They do. And it's the same with a good trainer in your club, on your gym floor. If they've got a really good following and they engage, and they'll only engage if you make them part of your club, make them feel welcome. And that just drives your business overall. Now, sorry, go on.
So here, think of this. We have Tara at Simspa, and we have Gillian over at EMD UK, Group X and personal training. Think of the outcome if we were to blend in those two skill sets in such a way that the end result is that we touch more inactive people. Think of the power of that would be. And these inactive people, some will stay outside the clubs, but if the club programming is flexible enough, they'll come into the clubs. And those who come into the club, if it's done right, they're going to stay. They're going to stay, and they're going to refer, and they're going to spend money. Think of that, the power, the unbelievable power. And
well, I've had quite a few discussions about this over recent times. The trying to get the inactive in, and I think I put something on this week on LinkedIn in terms of our messaging is sometimes wrong. So, what would you say is the obviously with 85% of the public in the UK, I think it's 78% in the US of people who are not members of clubs. Now they may do other things outside, so I'm not saying they're not exercising at all, but how do you say we take those in or encourage those inactive people to take action to come into and take up our services?
Once again, Ryan, we're in sync. We're in sync here. Here's the challenge. The issue is the culture, the cultural message. The cultural message has to be, this is a safe place, number one. Number two, it's all about you as a customer, not about us. And we'll be able to give you flexible programming options specific to your needs intellectually, but emotionally. That's the messaging. That's the messaging.
Because it's dangerous, isn't it? If you ever look at a lot of the clubs, and I understand why we do it as an industry, everyone's fit, healthy, looks the part, you know what I mean, pushing some heavy weights and they're beautiful people on all the marketing. But when you relate that, they probably only relate to the 15% that are training in the clubs. And so when someone's, I don't know, they've been poorly or they're overweight or they've got to middle age like me and they're sort of, and it's, I need to start again, but they can't see themselves in anything that's portrayed, it makes it difficult for them to go. And then obviously confidence comes into it. Oh, will I fit in? And I think that's the challenge we're having with converting a lot of these inactive members or clients.
Yes. And the focus is this. The club has to define who their avatar is. And it's hard to be all things to all people because you want memberships. No, you need to niche down as to where your focus is at and then market to that particular focus. So, for example, in the States, we're doing a big push now on GLP-1 programming. So I'm working with a project now in Tampa, Florida, and the advertising campaign contained folks who are on GLP. Not the beautiful people, not the ripped, abs showing, no, half naked folks. No, they're in the pool. Yeah. They're in the pool playing volleyball. So think of this. Think of the aquatics programming effort in the UK with David Mitton. He's been doing that for years, his report. You have so many pools in the UK. It's a great initial transition point or starting point for those folks who are inactive. If they never lift the weight, get them in the pool to start them on their journey, because water creates a different type of resistance, but it's a different type of instructional mindset from a coaching standpoint to get them in. But once you get them in, you got them.
Especially that age group, because generally those that were coming in that age group tend to be the older population. When I was at Marriott, we used to have all our aqua classes were full, and it was always of a certain age group, but they never leave. Your retention with those guys, you've got them for life quite often, which is brilliant. Whereas younger people tend to be a lot more transient, is probably the best word.
But the connection is, once you create a consumer support network amongst themselves that we as FitPros or operators manage, then the issue is what's next.
Yeah.
It's the what next, and knowing when to introduce the what next is what's happening. So in this facility in Florida, in Tampa, they start in the water, and when the collective is ready to come on land, it's more successful because it's the collective who made the decision. Let's go on land on Tuesday and back in the water on Wednesday. Let's go back on land on Thursday and let's play volleyball in the water on Friday. Yes, we got them. We got them.
That's like Navy SEALs. I don't know about. That's what they do. So, in terms of this client journey, because obviously this is really important. Because obviously you've mentioned it quite a lot. How would you set out that? Because I think what happens in a lot of clubs, and especially the ones that I go into, the client journey, they do have them, and they tend to be for sort of 1 or 2 months, 3 months max, 90 days, and then it stops and nothing sort of continues. So how would you, or when you work with clubs, how do you get that set out so that the clubs are got a lifelong journey?
We assign a coach. Here's where the fitness team comes in at. You assign a coach. And so, for example, if someone comes in who's clearly inactive, the last option you give them is going to be a HIIT class. That's the last thing you're going to do. So what's their initial movement? Maybe it's a yoga class. Maybe it's an intro to bar. Maybe if you have access to a pool, maybe just going into a pool to get them to feel comfortable. Maybe you take this individual and introduce them to your community of like-minded individuals and start getting them to come together and take the same classes together. That's the skill sets that we bring to the table that the operators don't respect at all. Once we start that connection, the journey happens better and better. It's when they do it by themselves where the staying power is lower. You team them up with someone else that's similar to them with similar needs, issues, similar emotions. They check to each other saying, okay, let's go at 9 a.m. and take Mary's class or take Bob's class. Okay, I'll meet you there. So they come in together. They take class together. They connect together, and they may have tea afterwards together and plan their next visit and their next visit. That's the role we play to make it happen. We want to get them past that 60-day mark, past the 90-day mark, and keep them coming back, and coming back. We got them.
Absolutely. Definitely, it's all about community, isn't it, and connections. I know, coming back to Paul again, Paul was saying, God, this was years ago when I was at Marriott, but I think the stats were saying if you any communication with somebody, whether that be with a member of staff or another member, which generally had more power, if they had one conversation per month, it kept their membership for an extra 2 months. I'm sure it's something like that, the stats. And you just think, are we not speaking to our members at all then? Because if that was the case, the members would never leave, or their average length of stay would be significant.
Exactly. We're either not speaking to them correctly or we're not speaking to them at all. So when I say not speaking to them correctly, we're not speaking to them in emotional terms.
Yeah.
I came in today. I'm really, really tired. I'm supposed to lift weights. Well, let's do something else. Let's pivot. Let's do something else. But doing nothing is not the option. Let's do something else. I'm a trainer. Someone comes to me. I didn't sleep well last night. I had a really bad time. I don't know if I can do this. I will take my session I have in my mind. I'll reconnect it. Everything will be lower intensity to get the juices flowing. We have a conversation. All of a sudden, it gets a little bit harder. Are we finished already? Oh, yeah. Wow, I feel great. That's when that happens, we did it. It happens every day.
And I guess a lot of the time with our industry, a lot of our clients are allowed to train on their own, probably too much, in the sense of we leave them to do their own thing, and quite often we don't pick up when they're starting to drop off.
And you're right. So the last club I worked at here in South Florida, I had a conversation with the owner. I said, okay, you have great group exercise classes, the best in town. But then you have a group of people who just come in and use the equipment. So to the extent that those equipment-focused people are not in the classes, if a new club opens up with brand new equipment at a cheaper price, they're gone. He would say, I don't care if they leave. But then when they left, we're losing members. They're not engaged. They're not doing yoga. They're not doing stretching. They're not doing cycling. They're doing nothing. They're not doing TRX. All they do is lift weights. So they're not really committed to the culture, and the culture of the club is not including them into the strong point of the culture. So it's the operator is the problem, not the customer. But he would blame the customer. He would blame the customer. It's their fault.
And it is harder on the gym floor to get those people to engage. Of course it is. You don't have them bouncing around together in a class and have the same atmosphere. But there's definitely ways we can do more to engage. We've got gym staff on the floor. We've got, you know what I mean? And just having those conversations, supporting their training, give them some new training tips, give them ideas of how to improve. Because a lot of these guys, even someone who's trained for years, has probably done the same thing for years. So if you can go in there with all your technical skills and give them something else and go, do you know what? Your muscles are used to doing what you're doing now. Let's flip that up. Let's do this.
Okay. I'm glad you said. Here's a story. I'm a great storyteller. So I'm leaving. I'm in a section of Florida. I'm leaving Florida. I'm going to Wichita, Kansas. So my clients want to go to a different trainer. So the trainer I referred them to, hardcore bodybuilder, but really, really great trainer, great scientist, great personality. So my client said, well, wait a minute. He doesn't teach or take spinning classes. So how does he know what I need? So I said, okay, Kurt, okay, you want my clientele? They have to see you in a spinning class. But Bob, I'm a hardcore bodybuilder. I said, okay, I'm going to do it. So on a Saturday morning, he goes and takes a spinning class. He comes out. He said, Bob, okay, I'm done. I did it. So I did it. So I'm going to get something to eat. An hour later, I'm still waiting for him to come back. I go out looking for him. He's in his car, sleeping. He's exhausted. He has no glycogen left. He says, Bob, I can't do this anymore, but I'm going to keep trying till I build up my ability to do it. He did it. He kept every one of my clients when I left. But he had to get out there because but he did it. That's what they wanted. That's what he did. He did it. Fine.
Wow. It's it's true though, isn't it? You've got to get yourself into their space. I always say it's like when I used to teach spin. I used to actually do the class, and there's so many spin instructors that go through the motions, but I used to do it as hard as it, because I thought if I'm training this hard, I damn well know they're suffering. So I knew exactly what it was like, and we had that banter then, because obviously I'd be pouring my sweat and so would they, and you've got that great relationship then. So it worked really well. Now, because we're running out of time a little bit, Bob, it's gone really fast already. In terms of, obviously you work with clubs to help them improve and benefit. What would you say is the probably top 2, top 3 strategies that you would say to help improve the clubs? So you go in there and they want to make a change. What do you say that there'd be 2 or 3 things that you could instantly go, right, look at this?
Okay. It requires the operators to do a self-reflection. So the first question I say to you, okay, what's your attrition rate? And most clubs don't want to deal with that, but I say, what's your attrition rate? How bad is bad? And then once you see how bad it is, why? Why are they leaving? Okay, so that's the first thing, number 1. Number 2, what is your gross income? Oh, we're making all this money. Great. What's your net income after expenses? Oh, and then all of a sudden there's numbers like this. Okay, you're making all this money, but you're leaking profits someplace. Why? Number 2. Number 3, do your fitness professionals have a positive impact on the experience of your customers coming in and buying more than just the membership?
Yeah.
What does that look like? And it's like, well, we're making money gross, but then the net income question comes back. And then on top of that, they're losing their FitPros. Okay, why are they not staying? It's not their fault. It's your fault, Mr. and Miss Operator, as to why they're not staying. So we have to look at the income, gross and net. We have to look at the attrition rate. We have to look at the recruiting and the staying power, where that folks come in, they're staying. And they're staying because they're getting something out of it as a professional. And they're going to bring their friends in who are up and coming as well to also share in a positive atmosphere. If they're not, why not? And if they're not, and the why not is you have a toxic environment. Why would I stay? Why would I stay? Why would they stay? End of the day.
Do you know what's interesting in all that? Top 3 of them, not one of them includes sales. And that's a really interesting point, because you're sort of going, when you go into clubs, and you probably find this all the time, you walk in there, they go, I need to drive sales, I need more leads. And when you look at the business, you go, no, you don't, because you're actually currently losing, I don't know, your attrition rates 80% a year. I mean, I know a club that loses more members than it gains, and that's
Right. Exactly right. Exactly right.
And so it is interesting you point that out. Straight thing. It's not the sales. Get all these right, your client journey, your staff, and understanding your business revenue and outgoings. Now you've got control of your business. We can drive the sales to drive that revenue up. But ultimately, without this, you don't survive. So
I want people to walk into my operation pre-qualified, knowing they're going to have a great experience. I want them to walk in and say, I want to take Mary's class. I want to take TJ's training sessions. He's great. That's what I want to hear. Then we know we're making a positive impact across the entire operation. Exactly right.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting to hear. Now, before I let you go, Bob, in terms of what inspires you to do what you do, because obviously I've been trying to get you on for ages. We've not been able to sort times and stuff, so it's brilliant to have you on. But what inspires you, because you've been in the industry longer than me?
Okay, now I got to tell you this now, because there's a second part of that story. Because I retired from consulting in 2010, but I kept teaching and training clients. 2018, my wife said, enough already. We're out of here. So I officially retired from everything. 2018, COVID hit. Then I hear the discussions coming back after COVID saying, wait a minute, we solved these issues years ago. So my wife heard that and said, okay, you have my permission to come back in. So I came back in because we fixed this stuff before. We can fix it again. But people forgot how we fixed it. It was basic fundamentals that we really did really, really well on. And all those folks retired because of COVID. Okay, I get that. But we can fix this if we do two things. Number one, we have to have an entrepreneurial mindset to understand we have to focus on the customer. We're hospitality. This is why they come. We have to tap into that. Yeah.
I still think fitness professionals should go spend a year in proper hospitality, like a Marriott hotel or because I spent 11 years with Marriott and I loved every minute of it, just because of the culture that was all about the customer. It was all about the customer. And so everything else went around. So when you were thinking about a decision, how does this impact the business, but also how does it impact the customer? So do I do it or don't I do it? And a large proportion of it came down to how it would impact the customer's experience.
Right. But now I'm glad you said that. So think of this. What if, and I know that within the certifying agencies, it's not part of their remit to talk about business, but if they were to prep the up-and-coming fit pros a little bit more upfront to how to create a business around the science, so when they come out, they're better prepared for reality, because they're coming out not prepared at all. They have no idea what's going on.
I think the biggest challenge, and we'll do a full circle here, but the biggest challenge is back in my day and your day, when you qualified, you went in as a gym instructor, then you earned your right to be a personal trainer. Then you went into duty management, sales management, whatever you did after that. What's happening now is, because so many clubs have got rid of the gym instructor element and they just you're almost going from training to gym floor. And because you've got that, you haven't had these 6 months, 12 months on the gym floor, doing the inductions, building rapport, all of that element that came with learning how to speak to the customers. You're almost going from zero to hero, and going, oh, I'm still missing a huge skill set here.
Right.
And having to learn.
To the extent the operators can put back in place in-house training programs to help solve that problem, it basically works. But that's part of the challenge. They don't see the value. Yeah.
And it's leading up to management as well. There's a lot less really strong managers around. And the ones that are coming from other industries, because you haven't had the movement up, gym instructor, PT, sales, whatever. You don't have those managers now that come from it. You're almost trying to take a PT who's very good and put him into a management role when they've had no experience along the way.
And that's probably another webinar podcast. That's another piece of my passion, because we have created so many accidental managers as opposed to trained managers. Absolutely.
And then what we do is we blame the manager when they don't perform. And actually you look and go, they were 2 steps ahead of where they actually should be. And that's not their fault. It's our fault, because we've been struggling to managers. Exactly right. And so where they could have been brilliant managers, we dumped them in the role too quickly, and then they fail because we expect too much. So, but yeah. Right. Now, leaving on a positive, in terms of you personally, what inspires you to do what you do, Bob?
I'm a people person. I know with proper training, we can make a positive impact on a person's life generically, but also I know we can take that inactive person and get them active by making them feel comfortable, safe, and secure, and be able to address their specific needs emotionally on day 1, day 90, year 5, year 15, year 20. Absolutely. We have that ability to do that.
Well, let's hope your wife lets you carry on a little bit longer, because I think we've got a lot of a lot of value to offer to the industry, Bob. We'll leave it there. That's fascinating. I mean, it's gone really, really quick. So if anybody does want to get in touch with Bob, all his details will be at the end of the podcast. Feel free to reach out to him on LinkedIn. You're really busy on LinkedIn as well, so not hard to find. But I've loved every minute of this. Thank you very much for your time today, Bob. And
thank you for the opportunity. Because we've been spending months trying to connect, and this is great. I really appreciate your time, Ryan, and your effort, and all you do for our sector globally.
Well, let's hope so. So between us, we'll take on the world. But pleasure to have you on, Bob, and we'll definitely get you on again and talk some more. Thanks very much.
Sounds good. All righty.